Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the stream. My name is Maze. I hope you guys are having a nice day. Tonight, I'm going to read works by Edgar Allan Poe. Initially, I was just planning to read one short story, but I think that it's going to be a very short stream if I just read one. So maybe I'll do two or three, depending on my reading pace. But yeah, um, I think uh, these stories are like a bit horror like, or not really horror. Or maybe, yeah, they are. Because Mr. Poe is known to write stuff like that. I thought about doing a reading stream like this because it has been requested that I read like horror stories or something like that. And I thought I'd start with a classic. Yeah. I'll keep you uh I'll keep your ears busy. Good luck with work. Anyways, I think I should start now. The very first story that I'm going to read is titled The Devil in the Belfry. Oh, by the way, please let me know if the ambience music is just okay, like not too loud, not too quiet, just relaxing. Anyways, here I go. Once again, this is The Devil in the Belfry by Edgar Allan Poe. What o'clock is it? Old saying. Everybody knows, in a general way, that the finest place in the world is, or, alas, was, the Dutch borough of Wonderwattimetis. I tried my best to read that in Dutch. Wonderwattimetis. Yet, as it lies some distance from any of the main roads, being in a somewhat out-of-the-way situation, there are perhaps very few of my readers who have ever paid it a visit. For the benefit of those who have not, therefore, it will be only proper that I should enter into some account of it. And this is, indeed, the more necessary, as with the hope of enlisting public sympathy in behalf of the inhabitants, I design here to give a history of the calamitous events which have so lately occurred within its limits. No one who knows me will doubt that the duty thus self-imposed will be executed to the best of my ability, with all that rigid impartiality, all that cautious examination into facts, and diligent collation of authorities, which should ever distinguish him who aspires to the title of historian. By the united aid of medals, manuscripts, and inscriptions, I am enabled to say positively that the borough of Wonderwattimetis has existed from its origin in precisely the same condition which it is at present preserves. Of the date of this origin, however, I grieve that I can only speak with that species of indefinite definiteness which mathematicians are, at times, forced to put up with uncertain algebraic formula. The date, I may thus say, in regard to the remote of its antiquity, cannot be less than any assignable quantity whatsoever. Touching the derivation of the name Vondervatimitis, I confess myself with sorrow equally at fault. Among a multitude of opinions upon this delicate point, some acute, some learned, some sufficiently the reverse, I am able to select nothing which ought to be considered satisfactory. Perhaps the idea of Grogswig, nearly coincident with that of, how do you read this, Crota Plenty, is to be cautiously preferred. It runs Vondervatimitis, Vonder, Liege, Donder, Vondermitis, quasi, und Blitzit, Blitzit Obsol, Pro Blitzen. Honestly, I don't understand what I'm reading right now. Am I dumb? I feel so dumb. This derivative, to say the truth, is still countenanced by some traces of the electric fluid evident on the summit of the steeple of the house of the town council. I do not choose, however, to commit myself on a theme of such importance, and must refer to the reader, desirous of information, to the Oranticulæ de Rebus Prate Veteris of Dunderguts. See also Blunderbuzzard, the Derivationibus, pages 27 to 5010. Folio, Gothic edit, red and black character, catchword, and no cipher, wherein consult also marginal notes and the autograph of Stuffendenpuffe, with the sub-commentaries of Gruntenguzel. Notwithstanding the obscurity which thus envelopes the date of the foundation of Vondervatimitis and the derivation of its name, there can be no doubt, as I said before, that it has always existed as we find it at its epoch. The oldest man in the borough can remember not the slightest difference in the appearance of any portion of it, and, indeed, the very suggestion of such a possibility is considered an insult. The site of the village is in a perfectly circular valley, about a quarter of a mile in the circumference, and entirely surrounded by gentle hills, over whose summit the people have never yet ventured to pass. For this they assign the very good reason that they do not believe there is anything at all on the other side. Round the skirts of the valley, which is quite level and paved throughout with flat tiles, extends a continuous row of 60 little houses. These, having their backs on the hills, must look, of course, to the center of the plain, which is just 60 yards from the front door of each dwelling. Every house has a small garden before it, with a circular path, a sundial, and 24 cabbages. The buildings themselves are so precisely alike that one can in no manner be distinguished from the other. Owing to the vast antiquity, the style of architecture is somewhat odd, but it is not for that reason the less striking picturesque. They are fashioned of hard-burned little bricks, red with black ends, and so that the walls look like a chessboard upon a great scale. The gables are turned to the front, and there are cornices as big as the rest of the house, over the eaves and over the main doors. The windows are narrow and deep, with very tiny panes and great deal of sash. On the roof is a vast quantity of tiles with long curly ears. The woodwork throughout is of a dark hue, and there is much carving about it, with but a trifling variety of pattern for, time out of mind, the carves of Vondervatimitis have never been able to carve more than two objects, a timepiece and a cabbage. But these they do exceeding well, and intersperse them with singular ingenuity, wherever they find room for the chisel. The dwellings are as much alike inside as out, and the furniture, oh my god, please excuse the motorcycles. Let me read that again. And the furniture is all upon one plan. The floors are of square tiles, the chairs and tables of black-looking wood, with thin crooked legs and puppy feet. The mantelpieces are wide and high, and have not only timepieces and cabbages sculpted over the front, but a real timepiece, which makes a prodigious ticking, on the top, in the middle, with a flower pot containing a cabbage, standing on each extremity, by way of outrider. Between each cabbage and the timepiece, again, is a little Chinaman having a large stomach, with a great round hole in it, though which is seen in the dial plate of a watch. The fireplaces are large and deep, with fierce crooked-looking fire dogs. There is constantly a rousing fire, and a huge pot over it, full of sauerkraut and pork, to which the good woman of the house is always busy in attending. She is a little fat old lady, with blue eyes and a red face, and wears a huge cap like a sugar loaf, ornamented with purple and yellow ribbons. Her dress is of orange-colored linsey woolsey, made very full behind and very short in the waist, and indeed very short in other respects, not reaching below the middle of her leg. This is somewhat thick, and so are her ankles, but she has a fine pair of green stockings to cover them. Her shoes, of pink leather, are fastened each with a bunch of yellow ribbons puckered up in the shape of a cabbage. In her left hand, she has a little heavy Dutch watch. In her right, she wields a ladle for her sauerkraut and pork. By her side, there stands a fat tabby cat, with a gilt toy repeater tied to its tail, which the boys have there fastened by way of a quiz. The boys themselves are all three of them, in the garden attending the pig. They are each 2 feet in height. They have 3-cornered cocked hats, purple waistcoats reaching down to their thighs, buckskin knee breeches, red stockings, heavy shoes with big silver buckles, long surtout coats with large buttons of mother of pearl. Each, too, has a pipe in his mouth and a little dumpy watch in his right hand. He takes a puff and a look, and then a look and a puff. The pig, which is corpulent and lazy, is occupied now in picking up the stray leaves that fall from the cabbages, and now in giving a kick behind at the gilt repeater, which the urchins have also tied to its tail in order to make him look as handsome as a cat. Hello, welcome to the stream. I just started reading The Devil in the Belfry by Edgar Allan Poe. I'm planning to read a few of his works, and to be honest, I'm quite lost with what I'm reading. It's very descriptive, and at the same time, there are lots of big words that I don't know what they mean. But so far, we're describing the citizens of Vondovatimitis. Let me continue on. Okay. Right at the front door, in a high-backed leather-bottomed armchair, with crooked legs and puppy feet like the tables, is seated the old man of the house himself. He is an exceedingly puffy little old gentleman, with big circular eyes and a huge double chin. His dress resembles that of the boys, and I need say nothing farther about it. Is it? Or maybe my let me check my connection too. Well, my connection says it's good, so yeah. Where am I? I got lost. Okay. All the difference is that his pipe is somewhat bigger than theirs, and he can make a greater smoke. Like them, he has a watch, but he carries his watch in his pocket. To say the truth, he has something of more importance than a watch to attend to. And what it is, and what that is, I shall presently explain. He sits with his right leg upon his left knee, wears a grave countenance, and always keeps one of his eyes, at least, resolutely bent upon a certain remarkable object in the center of the plain. This object is situated in the steeple of the house of the town council. I don't know, I didn't do anything with my audio. Maybe it's picking up the motorcycles passing by or my electric fan. I'm not using my aircon. Or maybe you're just feeling weirded out with the ambient music that I'm using. It's the same from last time, fire the fireplace audio, the rain, and the what you call this? The animals in the forest. How weird is it? Please let me know if we have issues. For now, I'll take a sip of my water. That's probably the fire sound effect. Let me try turning it off. I don't remember which one it is though, because I didn't rename my media sources. It's probably this one. Do you hear a cackling sound? If you don't hear anything, then that was the fire cackling sound that I have on. Should I just turn it off? I thought that would be relaxing, but if it's bothering you, then I'll keep it off. Or did it turn off? Because I'm not sure if I turned off the right thing. Please let me know so I can resume to reading. Are we good? Should I keep it off? Should I keep it on? So I should just turn it off? I don't think it's affecting my voice because the fire sound effect is really just, you know, when wood breaks a bit, so it's like popping. Am I still? I don't know what to do. Should I just... Is it the rain? Is it the animals? Should I turn off my electric fan? Is this better? Hello, hello. I don't know. Maybe it's just really my mic quality. I don't have the high spec mics. I just have a basic mic. I didn't really do anything. I don't really have any special features to adjust my settings. So do I just keep the ambient music off or on? Because if not, maybe I'll just use the default sound effect. Alright. I guess I'll just keep the ambient noises back on. Let me see. I wanna hear what you're hearing. If I don't hear it, then maybe it's just your audio problem. Ah, let's see, let's see. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Hello, hello. Oh yeah, I hear some cackling. Really? This is the first time I'm hearing it. I never hear it when I check my VODs. Also, why don't... I think I don't hear my background. I kinda don't hear. Maybe I'll increase my... Suddenly I can't hear my... Okay, now it's a bit too loud. I'll turn it down. Let's go... Wait, I need to turn on my fan. Okay, I hear the rains. I wonder why there's cackling. Wait. Is the ambient music at least just loud enough, or should I turn it down some more? I think it's kind of okay now. Was it also like this during the karaoke? I don't think so. I have a copy of the VOD and it wasn't like this. Okay, okay. I am adjusting. I don't know what to do. Oh, let me try some. Hello, 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 hello. There we go. I don't hear the cackling anymore. Woo! Sh should I continue reading now? Okay, I'll increase the ambience. Meow, meow, meow. Is that good enough? Please let me know if it's too loud. Alright, alright. Yay! Finally! We're back on track. Alright, alright. Ah. He sits with his right leg upon his left knee, wears a grave countenance, and always keeps one of his eyes, at least, resolutely bent upon a certain remarkable object in the center of the plain. This object is situated at the steeple of the house of the town council. The town council are a very little, round, oily, intelligent man with big saucer eyes and fat double chins, and have their coats much longer and their shoe buckles much bigger than the ordinary inhabitants of Vondervatimitis. Since my sojourn in the borough, they have several special meetings, and have adopted these three important resolutions: that it is wrong to alter the good old course of things, that there is nothing tolerable out of Vondervatimitis, and that we will stick by our clocks and our cabbages. Above the session room of the council is the steeple, and in the steeple is the belfry, where exists and has existed time out of mind the pride and wonder of the village, the great clock of the borough of Vondervatimitis. And this is the object to which the eyes of the old gentlemen are turned who sit in the leather-bottomed armchairs. The great clock has 7 faces, one in each of the 7 sides of the steeple, so that it can be readily seen from all quarters. Its faces are large and white, and its hands heavy and black. There is a belfry man, whose sole duty is to attend to it. But this duty is the most perfect of sinecures, for the clock of Vondervatimitis has never yet known to have anything the matter with it. Until lately, the bare supposition of such a thing— oh my god, please, wait. There are motorcycles passing by very loudly. I don't think the microphone is picking it up, but it's ruining my vibe. Come on. Let me read that sentence again. Until lately, a bare supposition of such a thing was considered heretical. From the remotest period of antiquity to which the archives have reference, the hours have been regularly struck by the big bell. And indeed, the case was just the same with all the other clocks and watches in the borough. Never was such a place for keeping the true time. When the large clapper thought proper to say 12 o'clock, all its obedient followers opened their throats simultaneously and responded in a very echo. In short, the good burgesses were fond of their sauerkraut, but then they were proud of their clocks. All people who hold sinecure offices are held in more or less respect, and as the belfry man of Vondervatimitis has the most perfect of sinecures, he is the most perfectly respected of any man in the world. He is the chief dignitary of the borough, and the very pigs look up to him with a sentiment of reverence. His coat tail is very far longer. His pipe, his shoe buckles, his eyes, and his stomach, very far bigger than those of any other old gentleman in the village. And as to his chin, it is not only double, but triple. I have thus painted a happy estate of Vondervatimitis. Alas, that so fair a picture should ever experience a reverse. There has been long a saying among the wisest inhabitants, that no good come from over the hills, and it really seemed that the world had in them something of the very spirit of prophecy. It wanted 5 minutes of noon, on the day before yesterday, when there appeared a very odd-looking object on the summit of the ridge of the eastward. Such an occurrence, of course, attracted universal attention, and every little old gentleman who sat in their leather-bottomed armchairs turned one of his eye with a stare of dismay upon the phenomenon, still keeping the other upon the clock in the steeple. By the time that it wanted only 3 minutes to noon, the droll object in question was perceived to be a very diminutive, foreign-looking young man. He descended the hills at a great rate, so that everybody had soon a good look at him. He was really the most finicky little personage that had ever been seen in Vondervatimitis. His countenance was of a dark snuff color, and he had a long hooked nose, pea eyes, a wide mouth, and an excellent set of teeth, which latter he seemed anxious of displaying, as he was grinning from ear to ear. What with mustachios and whiskers, there was none of the rest of his face to be seen. His head was uncovered, and his hair neatly done up in papillotes. His dress was a tight-fitting swallow-tailed back coat. From one of those pockets dangled a vast length of white handkerchief. Black cashmere knee breeches, black stockings, and stumpy-looking pumps, with huge bunches of black satin ribbons for bows. Under one arm he carried a huge chapeau de bras, and under the other a fiddle nearly 5 times as big as himself. In his left hand was a gold snuff-box, from which he capered downhill, cutting all manner of fantastic steps. He took snuff incessantly, with an air of great possible self-satisfaction. God bless me! Here was a sight of the honest burgess of Vondervatimitis. To speak plainly, the fellow had, in spite of grinning, an audacious and sinister kind of face. And as he curveted right into the village, the old stumpy appearance of his pumps excited no little suspicion, and many of the burgess who beheld him that day would have given a trifle for a peep beneath the white cambric handkerchief, which hung so obtrusively from the pocket of his swallow-tailed coat. But what mainly occasioned a righteous indignation was, that the scoundrelly popinjay, while he caught the fandango here, and a whirligig there, did not seem to have the remotest idea in the world of such a thing as keeping time in his steps. These sentences, oh my god, I didn't even know those words existed. Anyway, let me drink some water again. The good people of the borough had scarcely a chance, however, to get their eyes thoroughly open, when, just as it wanted half a minute of noon, the rascal bounced, as I say, right into the midst of them, gave a chassis here and a balances there, and then, after a pirouette and a pas de zephyr, pigeon-winged himself right into the belfry of the house of the town council, where the wonder-stricken belfry-man sat smoking in a state of dignity and dismay. But the little chap seized him at once by the nose, gave it a swing and a pull, clapped the big chapeau de bois upon his head, knocked it down over his eyes and mouth, and then, lifting up the big fiddle, beat him with it so long and so soundly, that what with the belfry-man being so fat, and the fiddle being so hollow, you would have sworn that there was a regiment of double-bass drummers, all beating the devil's tattoo up to the belfry of the steeple of Vondervatanitis. So there's this little old town in a round valley. Then suddenly one day, some bloke appeared and went to the belfry man and just beat him with the fiddle. All right. Interesting story. There is no knowing to what desperate act of vengeance this unprincipled attack might have aroused the inhabitants, but for the important fact that it now wanted only half a second of noon. The bell was about to strike, and it was a matter of absolute and preeminent necessity that everybody should look well at his watch. It was evident, however, that just at this moment the fellow in the steeple was doing something that he had no business to do with the clock. But as it is now began to strike, nobody had any time to attend to his manoeuvres, for they had all to count the strokes of the bell as it sounded. "One," said the clock. "One," echoed every little old gentleman in every leather-bottomed armchair in Vondervatanitis. "One," said his watch also. "One," said the watch in the row, and "One," said the watches of the boys, and the little bleat repeaters on the tails of the cat and pig. "Two," continued the big bell, and "Do," repeated the repeaters. "Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10," said the bell. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know how to read Dutch, answered the others. 11, said the big one. 11, assented the little ones. 12, said the bell. 12, they repeated, perfectly satisfied, and dropping their voices. 12 it is, said all the little old gentlemen, putting up their watches, but the big bell had not done with them yet. 13, said he. Der Teufel? Der Teufel? I cannot read. I'm sorry. For the Dutch people, I don't know how to count in Dutch, gasped the little old gentleman, turning pale, dropping their pipes, and putting down all their right legs from over their left knees. Der Teufel, groaned they. 13, 13. Mein Gott, it is 13 o'clock. Why attempt to describe the terrible scene which ensued? All Vondervatimeters flew at once into the lamentable state of uproar. What is coming to mein pelly? Roared all the boys. I've been hungry for this hour. What is come to mein crot? Screamed all the vrouws. It has been done to rags for this hour. What is come to mein crot? Oh wait, I repeated that. What is come to mein pipe? Swore all the little old gentlemen. Donder and Blitzen. It has been smoked out for this hour. Okay. And they filled them up again in great rage, and sinking back in their armchairs, puffed away so fast and so fiercely that the whole valley was immediately filled with impenetrable smoke. Meantime, the cabbages all turned very red in the face, and it seemed as if old Nick himself had taken possession of everything in the shape of a timepiece. The clocks carved upon the furniture took to dancing as if bewitched, while those upon the mantelpieces could scarcely contain themselves for fury, and kept such a continual striking of 13, and such a frisking and wriggling of the pendulums, as was really horrible to see. But worse than all, neither the cats nor the pigs could put up any longer with the behavior of the little repeaters tied to their tails, and resented it by scampering all over the place, scratching and poking and squeaking and screeching and caterwauling and squalling and flying into the faces and running under the petticoats of the people, and creating altogether the most abominable din and confusion which it is possible for a reasonable person to conceive. And to make matters worse, more distressing, the rascally little scapegrace in the steeple was evidently exerting himself to the utmost. Every now and then one might catch a glimpse of the scoundrel through the smoke. There he sat in the belfry, upon the belfry man, who was lying flat upon his back. In his teeth the villain held the bell rope, which he kept jerking about with his head, raising such a clatter that my ears ring again even to think of it. On his lap lay the big fiddle, at which he was scraping out of all the time and tune, with both hands, making a great show, the nincompoop, of playing Judy O'Flanagan and Paddy O'Rafferty. Affairs being thus miserably situated, I left the place in disgust, and now appeal for aid to all lovers of correct time and fine crop. Let us proceed in a body of the borough, and restore the ancient order of things in Vondervatimitis by ejecting that little fellow from the steeple. Ooh, the end. That was the story of the devil in the belfry. So what I understood is that it's a very conservative and isolated place, like Vondervatimitis, and they have like 3 mottos in their village that basically just says that be happy in Vondervatimitis, nothing good is out there, and all that. And they really like their clocks. Then suddenly someone came to town, beat up the belfry man, took over, and made the whole town miserable. I guess that is quite horrific. I it's only been an hour. So, and I spent probably like 30 minutes fixing my stream. So, it was a very quick read. I think I'll read 2 more short stories. This next story is titled Lionizing. Once again, smart reading, next stream. Next time I do a reading stream, maybe I'll do smart reading. Now I shall begin our next story. Once again by Edgar Allan Poe. Lionizing. Wait a minute. All people went upon their 10 toes with wild wonderment. Bishop's Hall's satires. I am, that is to say I was, a great man, but I am neither the author of Junius nor the man in the mask, for my name, I believe, is Robert Jones, and I was born somewhere in the city of Fumfudge. The first action of my life was the taking hold of my nose with both hands. My mother saw this and called me a genius. My father wept for joy and presented me with treatise on nosology. This I mastered before I was breeched. Now I began to feel my way in the science, and soon came to understand that, yes, genius, but he mentions the author Junius, like Junius. So if you touch your nose when you're just a newborn child, you're already a genius. Anyway, provided a man had a nose sufficiently conspicuous, he might, by merely following it, arrive at the lionship. Indeed. But my attention was not confined to theories alone. Every morning I gave my proboscis a couple of pulls and swallowed a half-dozen of drams. When I came of age, my father asked me one day if I would step with him into his study. My son, he said, when we were seated, what is the chief end of your existence? My father, I answered, it is the study of nosology. And what, Robert, he inquired, is nosology? Sir, I said, it is the science of noses. And can you tell me, he demanded, What is the meaning of a nose? I feel like this is humorous, but maybe something else will happen. A nose, my father, I replied, greatly softened, has been variously defined by about 1,000 different authors. Here I pulled out my watch. It is now noon and thereabouts. We shall have time enough to get through with them all before midnight. To commence then, the nose, according to Bartholinus, is that pro- protuberance, that bump, that excrescence, that will do, Robert, interrupted the good old gentleman. I am thunderstruck at the extent of your information. I am positively upon my soul. Here he closed his eyes and placed his hand upon his heart. Come here. Here he took me by the arm. Your education may now be considered as finished. It is high time you should scuffle for yourself, and you cannot do a better thing than merely follow your nose. So. Here he kicked me downstairs and out of the door. Oh my God, father! So get out of my house, and God bless you. Oh, poor Robert. As I felt within me the divine the divine afflatus. I considered this accident rather fortunate than otherwise. I resolved to be guided by the paternal advice. I determined to follow my nose. I gave it a pull or two upon the spot, and wrote a pamphlet on nosology forthwith. All Fudge was in uproar. Wonderful genius, said the Quarterly. Superb physiologist, said the Westminster. Clever fellow, said the Foreign. Fine writer, said the Edinburgh. Profound thinker, said the Dublin. Great man, said Bentley. Divine soul, said Fraser. One of us, said Blackwood. Who can he be? Said Mrs. Bass-Blue. What can he be? Said Big Miss Bass-Blue. Where can he be? Said Little Miss Bass-Blue. But I paid these people no attention whatever. I just stepped into the shop of an artist. The Duchess of Bless My Soul was sitting for her portrait. The Marquis of So-and-so was holding the Duchess' poodle. The Earl of this and that was flirting with her salts. And His Royal Highness of Touch-Me-Not was leaning upon the back of her chair. Edgar's got a clever way of naming characters and telling stories. I've always known that, but I've only read maybe one or two stories and works from him. Anyway, I approached the artist and turned up my nose. Oh, beautiful, cited her Grace. Oh my, lisped the Marquis. Oh, shocking, groaned the Earl. Oh, abominable, growled His Royal Highness. What will you take for it? Asked the artist. For his nose? Shouted her Grace. 1,000 pounds, said I, sitting down. 1,000 pounds? Inquired the artist musingly. 1,000 pounds, said I. Beautiful, said he, entranced. 1,000 pounds, said I. Do you warrant it? He asked, turning the nose to the light. I do, and I said, blowing it well. Is it quite original? He inquired, touching it with reverence. Okay, I'll keep that in my watch list. Humph, said I, twisting it to one side. Has no copy been taken? He demanded, surveying it through a microscope. None, said I, turning it up. Admirable, he ejaculated, thrown quite off his guard by the beauty of the... What? I do not know how to read this word. Maneuver? Because there's like, you know that letter that's like an A and an E combined? I don't know how to read that letter. I assume this is maneuver. 1,000 pounds, said I. 1,000 pounds, said he. Precisely, said I. 1,000 pounds, said he. Just so, said I. You shall have it then. You shall have them, said he. What a piece of virtue. So he drew me a cheque upon the spot. AE. And took a sketch of my nose. I engaged rooms with Jermyn Street and sent Her Majesty the 99th edition of the Nosology, with a portrait of the proboscis. That sad little rake, the Prince of Wales, invited me to dinner. We were all lions and lechonchas. I don't know. I think that's French. It's italicized. And there's like the thing above the letter E. There was a modern Platonist. He quoted Porphyry, Iamblichus, Plotinus, Proclus, Hieroclus, Maximus Tyrannus, and Syrianus. There was a human perfectibility man. He quoted Turgot, Price, Priestley, Condorcet, de Staël, and the ambitious student in ill health. I am sorry for all the people who know how to read these words. I could not. There was Sir Positive Paradox. He observed that all fools were philosophers, and that all philosophers were fools. There was Aestheticus Ethics. He spoke of fire, unity, and atoms. Bipart and pre-existent soul. Affinity and discord. Primitive intelligence and homoeria. I feel like I need a dictionary when I read along these short stories. There was the Theologus Theology. He talked about Eusebius and Arrhenius. Heresy and the Council of Nice, Pusicism and Consubstantialism, Humosius and Humoiosius. My God, Edgar! I said we were reading spooky stories, but this is more like a satire. Well, that was what was said at the beginning of this story. Bishop Hall's satires. I think that's the clue. This is satire. A very fun read so far, even though, I don't understand the things I'm reading sometimes. There was Fricassee from the Rocher de Cancale. He mentioned Muriton of red tongue, cauliflowers with veloute sauce, veal à la Sid Meneholt, marinade à la Saint Florentine, and orange jellies and mosaics. I really like how he uses other languages with his writing. There was Bibulus O Bumper. He touched upon Latter and Markbrunnen, upon Musex and Chamberton, upon Richburg and St. George, upon Haubrion, Leonville, and Madoc, upon Barrack and Pregnac, upon Grave, upon Sauterne, upon Lafitte, and upon Saint Péray. He shook his head at Clos de Voget, and told with his eyes shut the difference between sherry and amontillado. Amontillado. That's how you read it, not in Filipino. Only Filipinos say Ilya for the double L, I believe. There was Signor Tintontintino of Florence. I disappeared? Hello? I don't think my stream got cut off. Hello? Oh, okay. I don't know, I didn't notice anything. Where was I? Are you sure? Because on the stream that I'm looking at, it never cut off. Maybe it's your internet. I think that's your internet because it's not going offline on the stream that I am looking at. Like I'm literally like I have a separate thing that I'm watching so I can see how the stream is going. I think that's just your internet. I never had the offline never appeared on my side. Okay, I'll go on a water break too. Where was I? Oh, I'll resume reading. There was Signor Tintontintino from Florence. He discoursed of Cimabue, Alpino, and Carpaccio, and Agostino, the gloom of Caravaggio, of the amenity of Albano, of the colors of Titian, of the prose of Rubens, and of the waggeries of Jan Steen. There was the president of the Fumfudge University. He was of opinion that the moon was called Bendis in Thrace, Bubastis in Egypt, Dian in Rome, or maybe it's Diane in Rome, and Artemis in Greece. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be read as Diane. There was a Grand Turk from Stambol. He could not help thinking that the angels were horses, cocks, and bulls, that somebody in the sixth heaven had 70,000 heads. Hello, hello! Welcome back. And that the earth was supported by a sky blue cow with an incalculable number of greenhorns. There was Delphinus Polyglot. He told us what had become of 83 lost tragedies of Aeschylus, of the 54 orations of Isaias, of the 391 speeches of Lysias, of the 180 treatises of Theophrastus. Theophrastus. These names are... Oh! I feel dyslexic. Of the eighth book of conic sections of Apollonius, of Pindar's hymns and dithyrambics, and of 45 tragedies of Homer Jr. There was Ferdinand Fossilius Feldspath. He informed us all about internal fires and tertiary formations, about air forms, fluid forms, and solid forms, about quartz and marl, about schist and schorl, about gypsum and trap, and about talc and... I don't know how to read this. Talc and calc, about blende and hornblende, about mica slate and pudding stone, about cyanide and lepidolite, about hematite and tremolite, about antimony and chalcedony, or chalcedony, about manganese and whatever you please. There was myself. I spoke of myself, of myself, of myself, of myself, of nosology, of my pamphlet, and of myself. I turned up my nose and spoke of myself. Marvelous clever man, said the prince. Superb, said his guests. And next morning her grace of bless my soul paid me a visit. Will you go to Almack's, pretty creature? She said, tapping me under the chin. Upon honor, said I. Nose and all? She asked. As I live, I replied. Here then is a card, my life. Shall I say you will be there? Dear Duchess, with all my heart. Pshaw, no. But with all your nose? Every bit of it, my love. Wow, he got riz, said I. So I gave it a twist or two, and found myself at Almack's. The rooms were crowded to suffocation. He's coming, said somebody at the staircase. He's coming, said somebody farther up. He's coming, said somebody farther still. He is come, exclaimed the Duchess. He is come, the little love. And seizing me firmly by both hands, she kissed me thrice upon the nose, and a marked sensation immediately ensued. Diavolo! Cried Capri Cornuti. Let me read that again. Diavolo! Cried Count Capri Cornuti. Dios guardia! Muttered Don Stiletto. Mil torneres! Ejaculated the Prince de Grenouille. Thousand Treffel! Growled the Elector of Blondenoff. It was not to be borne. I grew angry. I turned short upon Blondenoff. Sir, said I to him, you are a baboon. Sir, he replied, after a pause, Donner und Blitzen. This was all that could be desired. We exchanged cards. At Chalk Farm the next morning, I shot off his nose and then called upon my friends. Bete, said the first. Fool, said the second. Dolt, said the third. Ass, said the fourth. Knee, said the fifth. Noodle, said the sixth. Be off, said the seventh. At all this I felt mortified, and so called upon my father. Father, I asked, what is the chief end of my existence? My son, he replied. Ooh. It is still the study of nosology, but in hitting the elector upon the nose you have overshot your mark. You have a fine nose, it is true, but then Blundenov has none. You are damned, and he has become the hero of the day. I grant you that in Fudge the greatness of a lion is proportioned to the size of his proboscis. But good heavens, there is no competing with a lion who has no proboscis at all. I guess that was satire and tragedy. I cannot speak anymore. That was a very fun read, even though I struggled to pronounce the names and the things that each person was talking about. They were talking about the professions and the things that interest them in the field, I believe. I'm not sure. I feel like half of those were made up words, made up names, and then half of those are like real things because I do know some of the words. Okay. Anyway, shall we read another story from dear old Mr. Edgar Allan Poe? The next story here is Xing Paragraph. Now, I don't know what this story is going to be, but I'm sure it's gonna be just as, what's the word, whimsical as the first two that I read. Here we go. As it is well known that the wise man came from the east, and that Mr. Touch-and-Go Bullethead came from the east, it follows that Mr. Bullethead was a wise man. And if collateral proof of the matter be needed, here we have it. Mr. B was an editor. Irascribability was his sole foible. Foible? For in fact, the obstinacy of which men accused him was anything but his foible, since he justly considered it his forte. It was his strong point, his virtue, and it would have required all the logic of a brown son to convince him that it was anything else. I have shown that Touch-and-Go Bullethead was a wise man, and the only occasion on which he did not prove infallible was when abandoning that legitimate home for all wise men, the East, he migrated to the city of Alexander the Great Onopolis, for some place of a similar title out west. I must do him the justice to say, however, that when he made up his mind finally to settle in that town, it was under the impression that no newspaper, and consequently no editor, existed in that particular section of the country. In establishing the teapot, he expected to have the field all to himself. I feel confident he never would have dreamed of taking up his residence in Alexander the Great Onopolis, had he been aware that in Alexander the Great Onopolis there lived a gentleman named John Smith, if I rightly remember, who for many years had there quietly grown fat in editing and publishing the Alexander the Great Onopolis Gazette. It was solely, therefore, on account of having been misinformed that Mr. Bullethead found himself in Alex. Suppose we call it Nopolis, for short, but as he did find himself there, he determined to keep up his character for firmness, and remain. So remain he did, and he did more. He unpacked his press, type, etc., etc., rented an office exactly opposite to that of the Gazette, and on the third morning after his arrival, issued the first number of the that is to say, the Nopolis Teapot. As nearly as I can recollect, this was the name of the new paper. The leading article, I must admit, was brilliant. Not to say severe, it was especially bitter about things in general. And as for the editor of the Gazette, he was torn all to pieces in particular. Some of Bullethead's remarks were really so fiery that I have always, since that time, been forced to look upon John Smith, who is still alive in the light of a salamander. I cannot pretend to give all the Teapot's paragraphs verbatim, but one of them runs thus: "Oh yes, oh, we perceive, oh, no doubt, the editor over the way is a genius. Oh my, oh goodness gracious, what is the world coming to? Oh tempora, oh Moses." The Philippic, at once so caustic and so classical, alighted like a bombshell along the hitherto peaceful citizens of Nopolis. Groups of excited individuals gathered at the corners of the street. Everyone awaited, with heartfelt anxiety, the reply of the dignified Smith. Next morning it appeared as follows. We quote from the Teapot of yesterday the subjoined paragraph. "Oh yes, oh, we perceive. Oh, no doubt. Oh my, oh goodness, oh tempora, oh Moses." Why the fellow is all "oh," that accounts for his reasoning in a circle, and explains why there is neither beginning nor end to him, nor to anything he says. We really do not believe the vagabond can write a word that hasn't an O in it. Wonder if this O-ing is a habit of his. By the by, he came away from down east in a great hurry. Wonder if he owes as much as he does here. Oh, it is pitiful. The indignation of Mr. Bullethead at these scandalous insinuations I shall not attempt to describe. On the eel-skinning principle, however, he did not seem to be so much incensed at the attack upon his integrity as one might have imagined. It was the sneer at his style that drove him to desperation. What? He touch-and-go Bullethead. Not able to write a word without an O in it? He would soon let the jackanapes see that he was mistaken. Yes, he would let him see how much he was mistaken. The puppy, he said, he, touch-and-go Bullethead, of Frogpodium, would let Mr. John Smith perceive that he, Bullethead, could indite, if it so pleased him, a whole paragraph, aye, a whole article, in which the contemptible vowel should not once, not even once, make its appearance. But no, that would be yielding to a point, to the said John Smith. He, Bullet Head, would make no alterations in his style to suit the caprices of any Mr. Smith in Christendom. Perish so vile a thought. The O forever, he would persist in the O. He would be so O-y as O-y could be. Burning with chivalry and of this determination, the great touch and go in the next teapot came out merely with this simple but resolute paragraph in reference to this unhappy affair. The editor of the teapot has the honor of advising the editor of the Gazette that he, the teapot, will take an opportunity in tomorrow morning's paper of convincing him, the Gazette, that he, the teapot, both can and will be his own master. As regards style, he, the teapot, intending to show him, the Gazette, the supreme and indeed the withering contempt with which the criticisms of him, the Gazette, inspires the independent bosom of him, the teapot, by composing for the especial gratification of him, the Gazette, a leading article of some extent in which the beautiful vowel, the emblem of entity, yet so offensive to the hyper-exquisite delicacy of him, the Gazette, shall most certainly not be avoided by his, the Gazette's, most obedient, humble servant, the teapot. So much for Buckingham. Oh, that was a paragraph. In fulfillment of the awful threat thus darkness intimated, rather than decidedly enunciated, the great Bullet Head, turning a deaf ear to all entreaties for copy, and simply requesting his foreman to go to the D, censored L, when he, the foreman, assured him, the teapot, that it was high time to go to press. Turning a deaf ear to everything, I say the great Bullet Head sat up until daybreak, consuming the midnight oil, and absorbing in the composition of the really unparalleled paragraph which follows. Let me take a quick drink. So ho, John. How now? Told you so, you know. Don't crow. Another time, before you're out of the woods. Does your mother know you're out? Oh, no, no. So go home at once. Now, John. To your odious old woods of Concord. Go home to your woods, old owl. Go. You won't? Oh, Poe, Poe. John, don't go so. John, don't do so. You've got to go, you know. So go at once, and don't go slow, for nobody owns you here, you know. Oh, John, John, if you don't go, you're no homo, no. You're only a fowl, an owl, a cow, a sow, a doll, a Paul, a poor old good-for-nothing to nobody log, dog, hog, or frog, come out of the Concord bog. Cool now, cool. Do be cool, you fool. None of your crowing, old cock. Don't frown, so don't. Don't hollow, nor howl, nor growl, nor bow wow wow. Good Lord, John, how do you look? Told you so, you know. But stop rolling your goose of an old Paul, about so, and go and drown your sorrows in a bowl. Man, Mr. Bullethead, he could be a rapper. Exhausted, very naturally, by the so stupendous an effort, the great touch-and-go could attend to nothing farther that night. Firmly composed, yet with an air of conscious power, he handed his MS to the devil in waiting, and then, walking leisurely home, retired with ineffable dignity to bed. Meantime the devil, to whom the copy was entrusted, ran up the stairs to Case in an unutterably hurry, and forthwith made a commencement setting the MS up. In the first place, of course, as the opening word was he made a plunge into the capital S hole, and came out in the triumph with the capital S. Elated with success, he immediately threw himself upon the little O box with a blindfold impetuosity. But who shall describe his horror when his fingers came up without the anticipated letter in their clutch? Who shall paint his astonishment and rage at perceiving, as he rubbed his knuckles, that he had been only thumping them to no purpose against the bottom of an empty box? Not a single little O was in the little O hole, and glancing fearfully the capital O partition, he found that, to extreme terror, in a precisely similar predicament. Awe-stricken, his first impulse was to rush to the foreman. "Sir," said he, gasping for breath, "I can't never set up nothing without no O's." "What do you mean by that?" growled the foreman, who was in a very ill humor at being kept so late. "Why, sir, there bent an O in the office, neither a big un nor a little un." What the Oh, I think this means devil, because it's just letter D and there's like a dash and L. There's censoring here. "Has become of all that were in the case? I don't know, sir," said the boy. "But one of them Gazette. Devils in been prowling 'bout here all night, and I expect he's gone and cabbaged them every one." "Don't rot him." "I haven't a doubt of it," replied the foreman, getting purple with rage. "But I tell you what you do, Bob. That's a good boy. You go over the first chance you get and honk every one of their eyes, and damn them, their innards." I'm assuming that word was damn, because once again it's just D, a long dash, and letter N. I wonder why there's suddenly censorship. An interesting writing nonetheless. Anyway, "Just so," replied Bob, with a wink and a frown. "I'll be into 'em. I'll let 'em know a thing or two. But in the meantime, that our paragraph must go in tonight, you know, else there'll be the devil to pay, and not a bit of pitch hot," interrupted the foreman, with a deep sigh, and an emphasis on a bit. "It is a long paragraph. Is it a long paragraph, Bob?" "Shouldn't call it a very long paragraph," said Bob. "Ah, well then, do the best you can with it. We must get to press," said the foreman, who was over head and ears in work. Just stick in some other letter for O. Nobody is going to read the fellow's trash anyhow." "Very well," replied Bob. "Here it goes." And off he hurried to his case, muttering as he went, "Considerable well. Them expressions, particular for a man as doesn't swear. So I to gouge out all their eyes, eh? And done all their gizzards. Well, this here's the chap, as it's just able to do as it as is just able for to do it. The fact is that although Bob was but 12 years old and 4 feet high, he was equal to any amount of fight in a small way. The exigency here described is by no means of rare occurrence in printing offices, and I cannot tell you how to account for it, but the fact is indisputable that when exigency does occur, it almost always happens that X is adopted as a substitute for the letter deficient. The true reason perhaps is that X is rather the most superabundant letter in the cases, or at least was so in the old times, long enough to render a substitution in question an habitual thing with printers. As for Bob, he would have considered it heretical to employ any other character in a case of this kind than the X to which had been accustomed. "I shall have to X this 'ere paragraph," said he to himself, as he read it over in astonishment. "But it's jest about the awfullest owy paragraph I ever did see." So the X he did, unflinching, and to press it went X'd. Next morning, the population of Nopolis were taken all aback by reading the teapot the following extraordinary letter. Skis kisk jonsk hux kis kis. How do I read all these? Yux kisk yux kux. Gis kisk anakus time before x. Yux ux ux the ux. Dux yux mux. Nux yux ux ux nox nox. Sux gux gobs at ksu. Nux duns dux dux yux gux ux ux cox cux. Gus goats dux yux wux ux cox cox. Yux wux ux pops pox. Jots dots dots dots. Yux guts dux goots. Yux nox sux sux at gus and gus gus slux. Folks nox nox potux. Unks yux here. Yux yux. Ox jonks jonks jonks. If yux donks gunks yonks nox tocontons. Nox 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 a punks and unks a cox a socks a donks a pokes a pooks ooks goods pods knuckles dogs no buttons nugs dogs hugs ugs rugs comes sorts of a cooks books no cook dog be cooks look full nopes oops oops oops. Maybe I should just read it without pronouncing the X's. Anyway, I'm already near the end, so I'm gonna read it. I try reading it the same way I've been reading it. X cooks dunks don't, donks, holland, no, holds, no, go, nox, bon, bonks, so, go, bon, jonks, honks, yonks, bonks, no, don't, yon, no, yonks, nonks, but, no, yon, and eggs, punks, punks, and eggs, and some yonks, sorgunks, and a punks. It's basically the same paragraph, but I know how to speak Simlish now. Because if I just don't pronounce the X, it's going to be SH just how to, it's still, I still sound weird. Anyway, the uproar occasioned by the mystical, oh my god, the motorcycles. The uproar occasioned by the mystical and the Kabbalistical article is not to be conceived. The first definite idea entertained by the populace was that some diabolical treason lay concealed in the hieroglyphics, and there was a general rush to Bullethead's residence for the purpose of riding him on a rail. But that head's residence for the purpose of riding him on a rail. Oh wait, I went back. I backread. But that gentleman was nowhere to be found. He had vanished. No one could tell how, and not even the ghost of him has been seen since. Unable to discover its legitimate object, the popular fury at length subsided, leaving behind it, by way of sediment, quite a medley of opinion about this unhappy affair. One gentleman thought that the whole an excellent joke. Another said, indeed, Bullethead had shown much exuberance of fancy. A third admitted him eccentric, but no more. The fourth could only suppose it the Yankees' design to express in a general way his exasperation. Say rather to set an example to posterity, suggested the fifth. That Bullethead had been driven to an extremity was clear to all, and in fact, since the editor could not be found, there was some talk about lynching to the other one. The more common conclusion, however, was that the affair was simply extraordinary and inexplicable. Even the town mathematician confessed that he could make nothing of so dark a problem. X, everybody knew, was an unknown quantity, but in this case, as he properly observed, there was an unknown quantity of X. The opinion of Bob, the devil, who kept dark about his having X'd the paragraph, did not meet with so much attention as I think it deserved, although he was very openly and very fearlessly expressed. He said that, for his part, he had no doubt about the matter at all, that it was a clear case, that Mr. Bullethead never could be persuaded for to drink like other folks, but was continually avising that blessed XXX and as a nitrile consequence, it is puffed him up savage, and made him cross in the extreme. And that was Xing a paragraph. I think that was very straightforward. Literally X'd a paragraph. I think I want to read one more story. And then I'll end the stream. This next story is still by Edgar Allan Poe. And this is Metzengerstein. Metzengerstein, I think. Pestis eram vivus, morens tua mors ero. Martin Luther. Horror and fatality have been stalking abroad in all ages. Why then give a date to this story I have to tell? Let it suffice to say that the period of which I speak, there existed in the interior of Hungary a settled although hidden belief in the doctrines of the metempsychosis. Of the doctrines themselves, that is, of their falsity, of their probability, I say nothing. I assert, however, that much of incredulity as La Bruyere, Bruyere, I cannot read French, says of all our unhappiness, "Vin de ne pouvoir être sols." But there are some points in the Hungarian superstition which were fast verging to absurdity. They, the Hungarians, differed very essentially from their Eastern authorities. For example, the souls, that is former, I give the words of an acute, intelligent Parisian. Oh, I can't read Italian. Paris, French, yeah. Italy is a different place. I don't know my geography. Ne demure qu'un seul fois dans un corps sensible. Al reste un cheval, un chien, un homme, même, n'est que la ressemblance plus tangible de ces animaux. I don't know if I read that right. I do not speak French. I'm sorry to the French people I offended. The families of Berlifitzing and the Mergenstein and the Metzengerstein have been at variance for centuries. Never before were two houses so illustrious mutually embittered by hostility so deadly. The origin of this enmity seems to be found in the words of an ancient prophecy. A lofty name shall have a fearful fall when, as the rider over his horse, the mortality of the Metzengerstein shall triumph over the immortality of the Berlifitzing. To be sure, the words themselves had little or no meaning, but more trivial causes have given rise, and that no long while ago, to consequences equally eventful. Besides, the estate, which were contiguous, had long exercised a rival influence in the affairs of business of a busy government. Moreover, near neighbors are seldom friends, and the inhabitants of Castle Berlifitzing might look from their lofty buttresses into the very windows of the palaces of the Metzengerstein. Least of all had the more than feudal magnificence thus discovered a tendency to allay the irritable feelings of the less ancient and less wealthy Berlifitzings. What wonder, then, that the words, however silly, of that prediction should have succeeded in setting and keeping the variance to two families already predisposed to quarrel by every instigation of hereditary jealousy. The prophecy seemed to imply, if it implied anything, a final triumph to the part of the already powerful house, and was of course remembered with the more bitter animosity by the weaker and less influential. Wilhelm Count Berlifitzing, although Lafittely descended, was, at the epoch of this narrative, an infirm and doting old man, remarkable for nothing but an inordinate and inveterate personal antipathy to the family of his rival, and so passionate a love for horses and of hunting, that neither bodily infirmity, great age, nor mental incapacity prevented his daily participation in the dangers of the chase. Frederick Baron Metzengerstein was, on the other hand, not yet of age. His father, the Minister G, died young. His mother, the Lady Mary, followed him quickly after. Frederick was, at that time, in his 15th year. In a city, 15 years are no long period. A child may still be a child in his third lustrum, but in a wilderness, in so magnificent a wilderness as that old principality, 15 years have a far deeper meaning. From some peculiar circumstances attending the administration of his father, the young baron, at the decease of the former, entered immediately upon his vast possessions. Such estates were seldom held before by noblemen of Hungary. His castles were without number. The chief in point of splendor and extent was Chateau Metzengerstein. The boundary line of his dominions was never clearly defined, but his principal park embraced a circuit of 50 miles. Upon the succession of a proprietor so young, with a character so well known, to a fortune so unparalleled, little speculation was afloat in regard to his probable course of conduct. And indeed, for the space of 3 days, the behavior of the heir out-Heroded Herod, and fairly surpassed the expectations of his most enthusiastic admirers. Shameful debaucheries, flagrant treacheries, unheard of atrocities, gave his trembling vassals quickly to understand that no servile submission on their part, no punctilios of conscience on his own, were thenceforward to prove any security against the remorseless fangs of a petty Caligula. On the night of the 4th day, the stables of the castle Berlifitzing were discovered to be on fire, and the unanimous opinion of the neighborhood added the crime of the incendiary to the already hideous list of the baron's misdemeanors and enormities. But during the tumult occasioned by the occurrence, the young nobleman himself sat apparently buried in meditation, in a vast and desolate upper apartment of the family palace of Metzengerstein. The rich although faded tapestry hangings, which swung gloomily upon the walls, represented the shadowy and majestic forms of 1,000 illustrious ancestors. Here, rich ermined priests, the pontifical dignitaries, familiarly seated with the autocrat and the sovereign, put a veto on the wishes of a temporal king, or restrained with the fight of papal supremacy the rebellious spectre of the arch-enemy. There, the dark, tall statures of the Princess Metzengerstein, their muscular war horses plunging over the carcasses of fallen foes, startled the steadiest nerves with their vigorous expression. And here, again, the voluptuous swan-like figures of the dames of days gone by floated away in the mazes of an unreal dance of the strains of imaginary melody. But as the Baron listened, or affected to listen, to the gradually increasing uproar of the stables of Berlifitzing, or perhaps pondered upon some more novel, some more decided act of audacity, his eyes became unwittingly riveted to the figure of an enormous and unnaturally colored horse, represented in the tapestry as belonging to the Saracen ancestor of the family of his rival. The horse itself, in the foreground of the design, stood motionless and statue-like, while farther back its discomfited rider perished by the dagger of a Metzgergenstein. On Frederick's lip arose a fiendish expression, as he became aware of the direction which his glance had, without his consciousness, assumed. Yet he did not remove it. On the contrary, he could by no means account for the overwhelming anxiety which appeared falling like a pall upon his senses. It was with difficulty that he reconciled his dreamy and incoherent feelings with the certainty of being awake. The longer he gazed, the more absorbing became the spell. The more impossible did it appear that he could ever withdraw his glance from the fascination of the tapestry. But the tumult without becoming suddenly more violent, with the compulsory extortion he diverted his attention to the glare of the ruddy light thrown full by the flaming sables upon the windows of the apartment. The action, however, was but momentary. His gaze returned mechanically to the wall. To his extreme horror and astonishment, the head of the gigantic steed had, in the meantime, altered its position, the neck of the animal before arched, as if in compassion, over the prostrate body of its lord, was now extended at full length in the direction of the Baron. The eyes, before invisible, now wore an energetic and human expression, while they gleamed with fiery and unusual red, and the distended lips of the apparently enraged horse left in full view his gigantic and disgusting teeth. Stupefied with horror, the young nobleman tottered to the door. As he threw it open, a flash of red light, streaming far into the chamber, flung his shadow with a clear outline against the quivering tapestry, and he shuddered to perceive that shadow, as he staggered a while upon the threshold, assuming the exact position and precisely filling up the contour of the relentless and triumphant murderer of the Saracen. I don't know how to read this name. Saracen, Berlifitzing. To lighten the depression of his spirits, the Baron hurried into the open air. The principal gate of the palace he encountered three equerries, with much difficulty, and at that imminent peril of their lives, they were restraining the convulsive plunges of a gigantic and fiery-colored horse. "Whose horse? Where did you get him?" demanded the youth, in a querulous and husky tone of voice. He became instantly aware that the mysterious steed in the tapestried chamber was the very counterpart of the furious animal before his eyes. "He is your property, sire," replied one of the equerries. "At least he is claimed by no other owner. We caught him flying, and smoking and foaming with rage. from the burning stables of the castle Berlifitzing, supposing him to have belonged to the old Count's studs of foreign horses. We led him back as an estray. But the grooms there disclaim any title of the creature, which is strange, since he bears evident marks of having made a narrow escape from the flames. The letters W, V, B were also branded very distinctly on his forehead, interrupted the second equerry. I suppose them, of course, to be the initials of Wilhelm von Berlifitzing. But all at the castle are positive in denying any knowledge of the horse. Extremely singular, as said the young baron, with a musing air, and apparently unconscious of the meaning of his words. He is, as you say, a remarkable horse, a prodigious horse, although, as you very justly observe, of a suspicious and untractable character. Let him be mine, however, he added after a pause. Perhaps a rider like Frederick of Metzengerstein may tame even the devil from the stables of Berlifitzing. You are mistaken, my lord. The horse, as I think we mentioned, is not from the stables of the Count. If such had been the case, we know our duty better than to bring him into the presence of a noble of your family. True, observed the baron dryly. And he... At that instant a page of the bedchamber came from the palace with a heightened color and a precipitate step. He whispered into his master's ear an account of a sudden disappearance of a small portion of the tapestry in an apartment which he designated, entering at the same time into particular of a minute and circumstantial character. But from how low tone of voice in which these latter were communicated, nothing escaped to gratify the excited curiosity of the equerries. The young Frederick during the conference seemed agitated by a variety of emotions. He soon, however, recovered his composure, and as expression of determined malignancy settled upon his countenance, as he gave peremptory orders that a certain chamber should be immediately locked up, and a key placed in his own possession. Have you heard of the unhappy death of the old hunter Berlifitzing? Said one of the vassals of the baron, as, after the departure of the page, the huge steed which that noble had adopted as his own plunged and curveted, with redoubled fury, down the long avenue which extended from the chateau to the stables of Metzengerstein. Let me do some quick water break. No, said the baron, turning abruptly toward the speaker. Dead, you say? It is indeed true, my lord, and to a noble of your name will be, I imagine, no unwelcome intelligence. A rapid smile shot over the countenance of the listener. How died he? In his rash exertions to rescue a favorite portion of his hunting stud, he has himself perished miserably in the flames. Indeed, ejaculated the baron, as if slowly and deliberately expressed with the truth of some exciting idea. Indeed, repeated the vassal. Shocking, said the youth, calmly, and turned quietly into the chateau. From this date a marked alteration took place in the outward demeanor of the dissolute young Baron Frederick von Metzengerstein. Indeed, his behavior disappointed every expectation, and proved little in accordance with the views of many maneuvering mamma. While his habits and manner, still less than formerly, offered anything congenial with those of the neighboring aristocracy, he was never to be seen beyond the limits of his own domain, and in this wide social world was utterly companionless, unless indeed the unnatural impetuous and fiery-colored horse, which he henceforth continually bestrode, had any mysterious right to the title of his friend. Numerous invitations on the part of the neighborhood for a long time, however, periodically came. Will the Baron honor our festivals with his presence? Will the Baron join us in a hunting of the boar? Metzgerstein does not hunt. Metzgerstein will not attend, were the haughty and laconic answers. These repeated insults were not to be endured by the imperious nobility. Such invitations became less cordial, less frequent, and in time they ceased altogether. The widow of the unfortunate Count Berlifitzing was even heard to express a hope that the Baron might not be at home when he did not wish to be at home, since he disdained the company of his equals, and ride when he did not wish to ride, since he preferred the society of a horse. This, to be sure, was very silly explosion of hereditary pique, and merely proved how singularly unmeaning our sayings are apt to become when we desire to be unusually energetic. The charitable nevertheless attributed the alteration in the conduct of the young nobleman to the natural sorrow of a son for the untimely loss of his parents, forgetting, however, his atrocious and reckless behavior during the short period immediately succeeding the bereavement. Some there were, indeed, who suggested a too haughty idea of self-consequence and dignity. Others again, among them may be mentioned the family physician, did not hesitate in speaking of morbid melancholy and hereditary ill health, while dark habits of a more equivocal nature were current among the multitude. Indeed, the Baron's perverse attachment to his lately acquired charger, an attachment which seemed to attain new strength from every fresh example of the animal's ferocious and demon-like propensities, at length became in the eyes of all reasonable men a hideous and unnatural fervor. In the glare of noon, at the dead hour of night, in sickness or in health, in calm or in tempest, the young Metzgerstein seemed riveted to the saddle of that colossal horse, whose intractable audacities so well accorded with his own spirit. The circumstances, moreover, which, coupled with late events, gave an unearthly and propensous character to the mania of the rider, and to the capabilities of the steed. The space passed over in a single leap, and had been accurately measured, and was found to exceed, by an astounding difference, the wildest expectations of the most imaginative. The Baron, besides, had no particular name for the animal, although all the rest in his collection were distinguished by characteristic appellations. His stable, too, was appointed at a distance from the rest, and with his regard to grooming and other necessary offices, none but the owner in person had ventured to officiate. Excuse me. Or even to enter the enclosure of that particular stall. It was to be observed that although the three grooms who had caught the steed had fled from the conflagrations of Berlifitzing, had succeeded in arresting his course by means of chain, bridle, and noose. Yet no one of the three could with any certainty affirm that he had, during that dangerous struggle or any period thereafter, actually placed his hand upon the body of the beast. Instances of peculiar intelligence in the demeanor of a noble and high-spirited horse are not to be supposed capable of exciting unreasonable attention, especially among men who, daily trained to the labors of the chase, might appear well acquainted with the sagacity of a horse. But there were certain circumstances which intrude themselves perforce upon the most skeptical and phlegmatic, and it is said there were times when the animal caused a gaping crowd who stood around to recoil in horror and the deep and impressive meaning of his terrible stamp. Times when the young Metzgergenstein turned pale and shrunk away from the rapid and searching expression of his earnest and human-looking eye. This is just my guess, but the horse is probably the old Count. He became a horse when he died in the fire, and that's why the Count's initials was on the horse. But this is just my guess. Maybe he has a secret horse that he never showed anyone. Among all the retinue of the Baron, however, none were found to doubt the ardor of that extraordinary affection which existed on the part of the young nobleman for the fiery qualities of his horse. At least, none but the insignificant and misshapen little page, whose deformities were in everybody's way, and whose opinions were the least possible importance. He, if his ideas are worth mentioning at all, had the effrontery to assert that his master never vaulted into the saddle without an unaccountable and almost imperceptible shudder; that upon his return from every long-continued and habitual ride, an expression of triumphant malignity distorted every muscle in his countenance. Almost done. One tempestuous night, Metzengerstein, awakening from a heavy slumber, descended like a maniac from his chamber, and mounting in hot haste, bounded away into the mazes of the forest. An occurrence so common attracted no particular attention, but his return was looked for with intense anxiety on the part of his domestics. When, after some hours' absence, the stupendous and magnificent battlements of the Chateau Metzengerstein were discovered crackling and rocking to their very foundation, under the influence of a dense and livid mass of ungovernable fire, as the flames, when seen first, had already made so terrible a progress, that all efforts to save any portion of the building were evidently futile. The astonished neighborhood stood idly around in silent and pathetic wonder. But a new and fearful object soon riveted the attention of the multitude, and proved how much more intense it is the excitement wrought in the feelings of a crowd by the contemplation of human agony, that the brought about by the most appalling spectacle of inanimate matter. Up the long avenue of aged oaks, which led from the forest to the main entrance of the Chateau Metzengerstein, a steed bearing an unbonneted and disordered rider was seen leaping with an impetuosity which outstripped the very demon of the tempest. The career of the horseman was indisputably, on his own part, uncontrollable. The agony of his countenance, the conclusive struggle of his frame, gave evidence of superhuman exertion. but no sound save a solitary shriek escaped from his lacerated lips, which were bitten through and through in the intensity of terror. One instant, and the clattering of hoofs resounded sharply and shrilly above the roaring of the flames and the shrieking of the winds. Another, and clearing, at the single plunge of the gateway and the moat, the steed bounded far up the tottering staircases of the palace, and with its rider disappeared amid the whirlwind of chaotic fire. The fury of the tempest immediately died away, and a dead calm sullenly succeeded. A white flame still enveloped the building like a shroud, and streaming far away from into the quiet atmosphere, shot forth a glare of preternatural light, while a cloud of smoke settled heavily over the battlements, and the distinct colossal figure of a horse. I guess the Baron turned into a horse as well. That must be the prophecy. And that was 4 works of Edgar Allan Poe. I think my favorite is still the first story, The Demon at the Belfry, in the Belfry, because I don't know, it was just interesting. Second story was also interesting, even though I struggled to read the names and their professions and things and stuff. But I think the dialogue was very fun, like how each person was like saying things, and the dialogue kind of reminds me of how Wes Anderson films go. It's very scripted. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. And then the third and fourth stories were also interesting. I think the third story was also fun. It was very humorous that Mr. Poe actually wrote the whole sentence with excess because, the O's disappeared. I think it's a very cool story. But yeah, I think all of them ended in tragedies. Oh my god. But yeah, that has been another reading stream. Yeah, it was scuff in the beginning, but that's how it is when you watch my streams. Hopefully next time there won't be any issues, because my god, I'm so tired of having issues. I mean, I know it's unavoidable at times, but I just want to experience one stream where we don't have any issue. Maybe someday soon. We'll see, we'll see. Yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys were not that confused by my reading. I did my best. Anyway, I'm gonna go rest now. Good night. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow I will play a game. I don't know which game yet, but I'm going to play. See you. Ingat. Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. Mwah, 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 mwah. Choo, 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 choo. Kiss, kiss. Bye.